Three, two, one, go.
And welcome into Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles at Press Box and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me is Eric Garfield of the Florida Prospects Report and now does stuff with us at PressBoxOnline.com related to the Orioles prospects and some other prospects all around baseball. But Eric, you and I, just before we got on here, we witnessed a pretty amazing Olympic basketball game as the U.S. came back from 17 points down to best Serbia, and now they will face France in the finals for the Olympic gold medal. Pretty amazing.
I love it when the other countries are almost as good as the United States, but not quite as good as the United States. It just reminds me of how much of a gap the rest of the world has closed to get close to us, but passing us, even besting a 41-year-old LeBron James, it's just not going to happen right now. So it was good to see. And how beautiful is it when you draw up a play in international competition and the person that gets to shoot it, to finish the play, is Kevin Durant. I mean, it's just that is a gold medal occurrence.
Yeah, it was a pretty amazing performance. We won't dwell on it, but if you get a chance, they'll probably play, I would guess, the last quarter tonight on the Olympics, late in the Olympic coverage. It's a pretty exciting finish.
Yep,
And now
yep.
the U.S. hopefully, sometimes in sport, Derek, what happens is the team that has an incredible comeback like this, they're celebrating that they won the championship and they forget they got one more game to go. But in this case, I don't think the graybeard, Mr. James, going to let that happen to his team. And that team is comprised of Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, Kevin Booker. I mean, just amazing. Devin Booker, just an amazing team.
And it would be something for France if they do happen to pull that upset and win, because they
Oh,
are the Olympic host and their young
yeah,
centerpiece is one of the best players, or maybe the best, the next best
next
player.
best player. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like
We
eight
are
feet
brought
tall.
to you today. We're going to get into baseball talk now, but the Olympics go on for about three more days or four more nights over on NBC, and just some amazing stuff. And it's great that Paris is doing such a great job hosting these Olympics. We're brought to you by the expert and award-winning AJ Michaels Heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and home performance. They'll help you improve your home's energy efficiency, clean all viruses in your system, and get you ready for $6,000 in potential rebates. The AC season is still on us for a good while longer. New rebates and discounts are available more at ajmichaels.com. AJ Michaels and Carrier, the big guys in the business. We're also brought to you by Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. They've got corned beef piled high, hand rolled bagels, and something different, a bar. Atman's has food and drink specials every day, now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit Atman's Deli. And by the way, you can watch all three of those games against Tampa down at Atman's over the weekend. Eric Garfield and I are also brought to you on Pressbox Live by the Costas Inn, where we give them 4 thumbs up on Thursdays, 6 thumbs up on Mondays when we do the other Zoom. And we will talk about, or I will talk about that and ask Eric's assistant raising his thumb in about 15 minutes. We'll talk about the Costas Inn
I'll be
and who
ready.
they'd really like to attract in there for business, right? Eric Garfield. Um, I feel like we're doing a reset on the Orioles farm system. Not that they drained it, but with Seth Johnson leaving, Moises Shashay leaving, Kyle Stowers, Connor Norby leaving. Am I leaving anybody out? That
Billy
got
Cook.
Billy Cook got traded. Matt Etzel.
Yep.
Jason Baumeister and Matt Horvath got traded. So
Yep.
about 8 or 9 players are
A lot.
gone from. That's a big change. The ball club itself, a 26-man roster, they got about 5 or 6 new players, including Mayo, Holiday, Eloy Jimenez, and hasn't he been a big surprise for the team? Austin Slater, and a few other guys. All the pitchers we
Elfin.
got back. Yeah, Eflin and Trevor Rogers, who pitched much better last night. Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto, who I know looks pretty darn bad right now. But trust me, they had a reason for acquiring him, but I don't think that manager Brandon Hyde was obligated to put him into a 1-0 game the other night. I had a real problem, Eric, before we get into the new players in the system and the difference in ranking the system. And I wrote a column yesterday about it, and I'm a Brandon Hyde fan. But in addition to taking Bert Smith out by giving up a bloop single to right field by Vladimir Guerrero after retiring the first 2 batters, and the fourth hitter in the inning with 1 man on base on first and 2 out was Spencer Horwitz, who's not scaring me that, oh, I can't leave Bert Smith in. Got to bring in a problematic lefty at the moment. I thought that was a terrible decision. And then I thought he doubled down and tripled down. And I very rarely pick apart his moves.
I feel the same way.
You've got the number one offensive. Paul Skeens is the number one prospect in baseball right now. I mean, he's no longer a prospect. He's doing it. And Jackson Holiday, though, is the number one prospect. You drafted him number 1 in the whole country. Okay, I get that his 2.5-week debut was a debacle back in late April and into May. He's hitting the cover off the ball. What do you think possessed Brandon Hyde, not Austin Hyde, Brandon Hyde, to pinch hit for Jackson Holiday? I guarantee you, nobody in Birdland, and I know the manager can't manage for the fans, but nobody would have been pissed off if Jackson Holiday had struck out or bounced into a double play. The man is made for the moment. You got to leave him in that game that night.
I think nobody. First of all, I'm glad to give you the opportunity to vent, and I'm totally with you. I am not hypercritical of any manager or Hyde. Yeah. In fact, I kind of prefer and like him. This was his worst game in terms of decisions made backfiring. Now, what I'm about to say is probably would make people even angrier. Everybody's like, oh, he's a slave to the lefty-righty matchups. He doesn't delve into the details of why they occur. Those people have a case. I think this is even worse. I think they had a plan where Jackson Holiday was playing 7 innings and resting the last 2, or something along those regards, where it was already instituted he's not playing 9, no matter what the pitching changes are, and he just made the move, despite the moment presenting very different circumstances. Like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should just leave him in and see what happens.
I don't buy that. Now, what's questionable is some of the moves, are they being dictated from above, and Brandon isn't being allowed to manage the way he wants to manage. But I don't see any way, shape, or form. They left Holiday in for 9 innings last night. I don't think that's reasonable. Now the guy that should have been pinch hit for was, now Austin Slater came up for Holiday, which, I mean, that's almost like it's not the same as Carroll Hardy pinch hitting for Ted Williams late in his career, but it's almost, in terms of what your expectations are, it's sort of like that. But it's the next batter was Ramon Urias. You got the bases loaded and nobody out. And why we couldn't get a pinch hitter for him? So what I would have done against the lefty is let Jackson Holiday bat and then I would have pinch hit Slater for
Urias.
Orioles. Now, would he then triple? When I said he tripled down, now with one out, when Urias strikes out and it's 5-2, the bases are loaded with one out, he pinch hits Kobe Mayo, who you know how big a Kobe Mayo fan I am, and I know
That
you
wasn't
are
the
as
time
well.
for it. It just
That
wasn't the
was
time for
not
it.
the time for pinch hitting him against not an incredibly talented pitcher, but sort of a stuff pitcher, a junk ball pitcher that's gonna. It was just a really and Kowser's been hitting the ball, so I really think he fell into the lefty righty thing way too much. I thought it was by
Right.
far his worst game in his. This is his sixth season now
The
managing
difference
Oriole games.
the difference between you and I is
Yeah.
we can discuss this rationally, not demand that someone is fired or someone is replaced. It was a bad game and it was a bad sequence, compounded by another bad sequence. That doesn't mean we have a horrible manager or any heads need to roll.
I
But
mean, I had to laugh though. I wrote a pretty scathing piece about it. I did not say that his head should roll. I actually went on Google yesterday, and Google has a thing now that they must know I'm in Baltimore. That they know I read a lot of baseball stuff, so it comes up. Hyde Orioles skipper on thin ice after disastrous night or something like that. I mean, come on. I mean, the guy, I think he made a mistake. I think he knows he made a mistake. Um, to me, Jackson Holiday, the guy you picked number one in the draft, number one, what's it called? 1A or what's it when he's the number one pick?
1-1, round
One
one,
one.
pick one.
Okay, 1-1. The guy you pick for that, you've got to believe that he's made for a moment like that. And what would it have done for that team if he had hit another home run in that game?
Probably
I
quite a
just,
bit.
all right. Enough said. The Orioles did come back and win last night's game, and they'll go for another a series win in Toronto later tonight. Let's dig into this. So, I don't know if your firm new top 12 list or something like that. We agree that in one shape or form, Holiday, Mayo, and Basayo are 1, 2, 3, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, but after losing 8 or 9 minor league players, prospects of uh, great status in the Orioles' history here of recent doing, um, they've got you've got a whole new list, and I thought we'd go over it today. And let me start with just asking a crazy question. I've got the list. I haven't studied it really, but Patrick Riley, who just pitched at Bowie the other night. I think he pitched 5 shutout innings. Is
Correct.
that
5. Yep.
correct? Is he
Debut.
on your top 10 list?
Oh, it's not exactly set in stone. It's liquid. It
I'm going to
changed
look
from.
at it now. I'm going to look at it. I did
That's
not
quite all
know.
right. I have Riley in the 5, 6, 7th
You've got
at the
him. You've
very
got him
lowest,
number.
and I
You've
think
got
when
him
I
number
finalize it,
5, but you
he's going
don't
to be
have a
5.
number 1 on your list. In other words, you started with Beavers 2. So
Right.
is Beavers number 1?
Basayo is
Okay,
number
you're
one
not
clearly.
including Holiday and Mayo because they're in the major league.
Correct. Right.
So
So this
Basayo is
is
1.
the purpose of what I made is to look at how the landscape is going to seem to appear post Holiday, post Mayo, and really post Basayo, because he's on the fast track. He'll be in the major leagues next year at age 20. So this is everybody that's left after that.
Do you see
Beavers is the
him?
best of
Do
that
you
group.
see them? I forget. I think McCann's contract is up after this year, and they had McCann extremely cheap because they got the Mets to pay like 90% of his 2 years for us. I think he was getting like 8 or 9 a year
Yep.
for 3 years,
Yep.
and we got the last 2 years at $2 million apiece or something like that.
I think the Mets paid 85% of his contract when he was traded. The Orioles were responsible for single-digit millions for 2 years.
Okay.
Great rate.
I think it was 4 million, a great pickup. Does he like it here in Baltimore enough to take an under market value?
Ooh.
I mean, I don't know that he's going to get anywhere near 7 or 8 million. He's more like at this point, I think like a $3 million guy.
Yeah, and I think he's got the kind of agent that's going to convince him that he's worth more, and it's not a lie because he will be able to get it.
Right.
But this is the kind of thing where you're adding on, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but your backup catcher needs to be inexpensive or very young, and the Orioles have Basayo. So
Especially
I don't think
if you're re-signing Santander,
Well, I think there's going to be a cap on how much he costs also, and he's probably a much more important person to whatever the Orioles nucleus is going to be than McCann. But it's silly to look past the contribution and the great rate that McCann has provided in his time as an Oriole. He's not done. He might have a playoff moment or a big clutch
no
hit
question
in
about
him,
it.
and I like him.
And I also see where his agent might be able to squeeze. Let's say he goes. Just saying, I'm trying to think of the right team for him. A team that's on the come. Ironically, it would be the Mets, but he's not going to. They're not going to bring him back. Let's say a
Cubs.
team like the Dodgers or the Cubs, and he gets a 2 year, 7.5 or 8 million. We're not giving him $7 or $8 million.
It's not a lot too much, but it's still too much. By the way, the Cubs starting catcher next year is going to be 20 years old. So it's the perfect situation for them to divide the 162 between an old and a very young Moises Ballesteros, one of the best offensive catchers there is. So have McCann for like somewhere between 50 and 80 games and Ballesteros for the rest. And if it costs that much, it would be perfect.
Yeah,
for them.
I got you. It makes a lot of sense. So Sayo is number one for you.
Clearly.
Let's go over 2 and 3. Despite the seasons they've had this year, which haven't been great, you have two buoy outfielders, Dylan Beavers at 2 and Judd Fabian at number 3. Explain.
Yep. They are kind of like the swingmen for how the system is going to play out. If they underachieve or bust, it's looking like neither is going to happen. But if they do, the Orioles system is a lot lower ceiling and lower talent than it appears right now. But Fabian is a 23-year-old center field type, better at defense than offense, good speed, good power. He's double digit. I think he has 17 taters, 12 steals so far this year, average low. He strikes out considerably more than he walks, so that hinders his on-base package. But this is an athletic, go-get-it center fielder, great arm, great range, great athleticism at the catch, too. Before the Orioles picked him, Fabian was drafted in the first round by the Boston Red Sox. He opted to return to college, attempt to improve his value. The Orioles got him in the next year's draft. That's Fabian. He's right-handed. Next to him is Beavers, a very left-handed
player. Yeah,
a lot taller, a little bit longer, but not slow. He's a base stealing type also. I believe Fabian is 23, and
Beavers is 22.
Beavers is 22, but his birthday is next week.
Okay.
So really we can call him 23 also. I think once Basayo is up and no longer a prospect, I think Beavers is going to be the best athlete, the best desire to improve and desire to be a leader type, and the best overall baseball player in the Orioles system. So to me, once Basayo is no longer number one, that spot is Beavers for the taking. A little bit better counting stats than Fabian. This is his year to like play with a full pro body. He's a lot bigger than he was when he was drafted. He's doing fine. Him, Basayo, and Fabian are really pacing that buoy offense.
Let me ask you a question about the two of them, Beavers and Fabian. They're not having great seasons this year. we saw what the Orioles were able to get for Kyle Stowers and Connor Norby, which wasn't a great return. I still think they'll get something out of Rogers. He's going to be here next year. I like him coming back, from Tommy John a couple of years ago. I think there's still something there. Are Beavers and Fabian, whether they make it to the Orioles or not, seems unimportant to me. Are they guys that have value to other teams looking down the road? Because it seems what's missing here a lot is guys that are eye popping that can bring you some return next year if Felix Bautista isn't back all the way and you need a relief pitcher. And one of these guys get you a return?
Stan, that really is a great question, and I'll do my best to try to answer it. But overall, no. They overall less than before by a significant margin. It might seem on its face that getting rid of Stowers was maybe a good move for the Orioles, or maybe something that's positive. He has a very high strikeout percent, very, very high, even though the game's trending that way. Very high strikeout percentage and rate. He was, but then you look, he was an organizational player of the year in 2021. So it shows there's peaks and valleys in development and in determining prospect value. Was Kyle Stowers ever going to play for the Baltimore Orioles? He played a little, but was he going to be a long-term starter? Probably not. I think Fabian and Beavers are probably trending in a similar direction, that there's going to be an interrupted path for at least one of them as they get close. But the other one is going to bring back something eventually. And I would say it's better than a 26-year-old Stowers who's striking out exactly 1/3 of the time. By the time Fabian or Beavers reaches that point where it's 40-man evaluation, Rule 5 for the next season evaluation, true prospect make or break, they'll keep one and deal one. And when they deal one, it's going to be more than Trevor Rogers on its own. But that really is a good question and a good way to examine how values change over time. In 2021, when Stowers was the organizational player of the year, it looked like he was clearly the Orioles' best young player option. Then a tidal wave of talent came and pushed him back down to like 11, 12, 13, or 14 on the list. My overall point is the list is very different this year. Very different.
No question about it. Let's take a quick look at numbers 4 and 5, which are Edgar Portes, which is the guy you and I saw pitch that day. And I said, who the hell is that? You told me. And we found out that he worked with Pedro Martinez during the offseason last year. He's at Aberdeen right now. And Patrick Riley just acquired, you have his number 5. You have Edgar Portes. Both of these guys should pitch in the big leagues, right?
Yep. I would agree with that. Riley is one of those guys that we might just wake up one day and not realize it. On the transaction wire, we see that Orioles recalled Patrick Riley from Bowie Bay Sox. It's not going to happen this season because he has about 100 pro innings, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility because of his readiness and his talent. He went to college for 4 years. He's pretty much past the low minors. Where Portes, and he's got multiple pitches that can get outs. Where Portes is a little bit behind that developmental track. He might have more overall innings, more usage,
more upside, maybe,
and definitely more upside. But he doesn't have the experience against high-level experienced bats that Riley got in Vanderbilt. So I would expect that Riley stays with Bowie for the rest of the year, and Portes is Bowie all season next year until the very end. Maybe this time next year he gets bumped up to AAA. He's only
21.
He's 21. So all this could happen to him before he even turns 23. And he might not have the amount of pitches that Riley has, but he has better ones, especially off speed. And he probably learned that from Pedro Martinez.
I have a great deal of respect. We've been doing the show for 6 months. I've got a lot of respect for you. I don't see now that I think of it, I don't see Cade Povich or Chase McDermott in your top 13 prospects. Is that by design? I mean, you really think that these guys, and we'll get into the names, are above them by that much?
Abs- no, absolutely not. I also respect you a great deal, and I have for many years.
Yeah.
It's no, I don't have Povich or McDermott on because what I'm trying to show is what the list is going to look like after everyone that was on it is
Okay.
on the Orioles.
Okay.
So
So
no,
you,
no,
so
they're
you're
not
not
getting
saying that
slight.
Patrick Riley, for example, is going to scoot by the two of them quickly. I mean, by like
No,
next April or something like that. No.
no, I don't think that's reasonable. But over time, maybe a matter of years or several dozen months, it can happen, and that would be a positive. But for right now, I believe that in terms of Orioles pitching prospects, Povich is leading the group. But I want from my list to show what the system looks like when these guys
Once
are
it's washed out, when
all
all up. Okay. All right. Let's take my time out now for the Costas in, and then we'll come back and go over number 6. We got a lot to cover. We got 6, 7 more players. So let's get to it. Let me tell you about the Costas Inn, located at 4100 North Point Boulevard. Great place to go for any geographical area you live in. But the reality has changed for an awful lot of people that used to frequent the Costas Inn a lot. They like their seafood. They like those nightly specials Monday through Friday. And they used to drive over from Catonsville, Glen Burnie, Arbutus, out that way by the airport. They'd go by the Key Bridge. Now those people have to go all the way around the Beltway to Dundalk, past East Point and Dundalk. It took what was a 20-minute ride, 25-minute ride tops for the Key Bridge people. The collapse now makes that drive to a simple restaurant and now an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes, and a lot more gas. So people just aren't doing it as much. That leaves an opportunity for locals in the area who used to say, I don't want to go to the Costas, and they're always so crowded. Well, they're still crowded. The place ain't
yeah.
empty. But just keep them in mind if you live locally in Dundalk, Sparrows Point, Essex, Middle River, that the Costas Inn, a local community-based restaurant. They've been there for over 50 years at 4100 North Point Boulevard. Crabs, if wherever you come, if you're planning a crab feast at the Costas Inn, call ahead 410-477-1975. Make sure you get the crab sizes, the availability, and the prices, because you don't want to come all that way wherever you're coming from to the Costas Inn and strike out. And you can strike out if you don't make your plans early for crabs. 410-477-1975. Like if you're thinking this weekend you're going to get crabs, you want to call now, 410-477-75. That's why we give 4 thumbs up to the Costas Inn. 4 thumbs up. And Monday I'll talk about them, and we'll give 6 thumbs up with Ross Grimsley back with him. Eric, let's go move on to number 6 on your list. Is an Aberdeen left-handed pitcher, Luis De Leon. Tell us a little bit about Luis De Leon.
This is someone who has not had a stellar season. However, the objective for him this season was to gain a lot of weight and be able to use it late in games and late in the season. So far, he is able to do that. Luis is a tall, kind of slender built. That's what they're trying to change. Lefty who has a 97-mile-an-hour fastball, a slider, a kind of curve, and a changeup. So young lefty.
Does he project as a starting pitcher or as a significant bullpen arm 2 years from now, 2 or 3 years from now?
I'm going to say starter because most of his appearances have been in the 10 to 12 out range at least. And
Okay.
because of those finishing type pitches, they're the type you want to show between 15 and 25 times a game, not just 5 times or 7 times in a relief appearance. So he's a major outgetter. And on the international value market, he's a high ranked and highly perceived player that the Orioles got for $10,000. That's
Whew.
basically a non-investment, and they've got a high upside guy in the mid minors about to take the next step in development. So when I talk to scouts and international people, they always ask about De Leon because they always want to know how much of a great was it a good buy or was it a great buy that the Orioles did. I think long term it's gonna end up great.
Okay. Is he
I'm
from the
biased.
Dominican?
Luis
You
De
know?
Leon is from Dominican Republic. Yes.
Okay. All right. Number 7 is a right-handed pitcher. Been in the organization, I think, 2 years. Cam Weston, who is currently also at Aberdeen, and he's number 7 on your list.
Now this is a pitcher that you have to have seen to have liked him, and some of the ranking services don't even include him, which I think is ridiculous. MLB Pipeline does an Orioles top 30. He's not even on it. This is a guy, this is a mature developmental track, major D1, very successful starter in college, big body, over
Which
220
which
pounds.
college did he go to? You remember?
Weston's from University of Michigan. He was their number 2 starter and a weekend starter in his last season there. So
Okay.
this is a guy, again, like Riley, major experience facing 21 and 22-year-old bats in college. That success is translated directly over to the minors. Really hasn't had any period of underperformance or failure. A lot of endurance, multiple innings per start. Doesn't have the same finish on his pitches, so he's probably not a high strikeout per nine guy. But to me, he looks like middle of the rotation starter. Not an ace, but 6 innings every time, and some of those starts are going to be really good. So I have him like in my 7 or 8 range, where, like I said, some other scouting or prospect ranking places don't have him anywhere.
Why, if you like him so much, and I trust your judgment, why is he only at Aberdeen? In
Okay,
other words, at 23 years of age? Because
good question.
that projects out to him getting to the big leagues like at 25.
Right.
Not a
Which does
terrible path, but I mean, but so
because
that's
he's
my
not an
question.
ace and he
Right.
doesn't strike people out a lot. And
Okay.
I think what the Orioles as an organization, what they try to have people do, pitchers do, get to the highest point of your metrics, get to the point in your career, in your physical state, where you can throw it the hardest, spin it the best, and control it the most. And then we'll get you out of the mid or low minors and start tracking you in the high minors. He's not there yet, but it
Okay.
doesn't mean he's bad. And it doesn't mean he's low upside or no upside. And by pipeline and some of the other places not ranking him at all, that's kind of what they're implying or saying indirectly. I very much disagree with that.
Disagree.
And I am somebody who has seen him and does watch him. And I bet some of the people who are making those decisions have not.
Haven't
Orioles
seen him.
prospect, this is kind of one like Orioles prospect fans know who he is and
Yeah.
what we have. To not rank him at all is ridiculous.
Is he a guy that could, and I'm not putting him on an ultra fast track, could he go from Bowie next year to Norfolk by July?
Yeah, and I bet the people that are writing his plan, like Matt Blood, would want for that to happen so he can A, start making it look like he'll be a usable piece for the Orioles, and B, reflect as a positive draft pick instead of just a minor leaguer. So
Gotcha.
I think if both of those things happen by this time next year, then he'll be at least on MLB Pipeline's top 30 Orioles list, where he should be right now.
Okay. Number 8
That's my
is last year's number 1 draft pick, Enrique Bradfield. I think he's exceeded what you thought he'd be at this point in his development. Is that right or wrong?
that's an opinion, so I can't say if it's right or wrong, but I will disagree with that. There was an outfielder that got moved up from the rookie leagues to Norfolk, Fernando Peguero, to fill a spot, and everybody was probably wondering, like, hey, why wasn't that Fabian? Or hey, why wasn't that Enrique Bradfield, the super fast guy who was the #1 draft pick? And there's an easy answer. They're not ready. They're not deserving. So the thing that I say, it's almost like a weekly thing that I'm going to repeat. If he can't hit it harder than 81 miles an hour, he's not going to be the prospect that everybody thinks he is. I'm not taking a shred anything away from his ability, his athleticism, his desire, his professionalism. I don't want it to sound like that, but if you can only hit it 81 miles an hour, there's a lot of things that you're not going to be able to do because of that. And I don't see him getting past that this year or really ever.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Creed Williams is number 9.
Right.
21-year-old high A. He's playing
Yep.
at Aberdeen. He's a
Yep.
catcher, and guess catcher DH is fair to say. He's working on his weight issue. He's keenly aware of that. Talked
Yep.
about it on the Glenn Clark show with him about a month ago, and was really pleasantly surprised how candid he was about it, and knows it's something he's got to work on.
That's how he is. He's kind of pragmatic. He's kind of realistic. He's kind of extremely good at baseball for someone of his age and kind of lack of experience. And he's got that Noel from Cleveland or someone else that that like Santander, that pure power of when he connects, driving it over the fence is so easy for him compared to everybody else. So even though his developmental track hasn't pointed all the way up, this is a very, very skilled athlete. Really, he pitched before he caught in high school. So this is an all-around baseball kind of performer. Anyone with the power ability like that, until they prove it's unusable or untranslatable, I'm going to rank him in the top 10 or very, very near it. He just came back from a couple-week injury last night. First at bat, home run. This is a home run hitter with more to add on top.
He reminds me of the guy. He was originally an Atlanta Brave about 8 or 10 years ago, and he ended up in Houston. Evan something or other. I can't think of his last name. That's all he was. He was a power hitter. He's also kind of a heavy catcher, sort of slash DH.
Gaddis.
Evan Gaddis. Yep. He reminds me a little. And Gaddis was right-handed. Creed Williams is left-handed. But just stands up there, looks like a country farm boy, and just short swing, and it's when he connects, a lot of power.
Creed is not in the best shape that he's going to be in the Orioles training program. He's going to get bigger and stronger. Yep. Already has the longest home run in the history of Twin Lakes. Already has, breaking Mark Trumbo's record, the longest home run in the history of Ed Smith Stadium. And it's not in Ed Smith Stadium. It's way, way out of the backfields, out of the complex, into a grandma's backyard. So this is he's got the legend to go with his power also. There's no reason to count those guys out before they hit their mid-20s. Creed is good. He's gonna be better. So I rank him high.
Eric and I are going over the farm system. This is Eric's top 10 list, minus Toby Mayo, Jackson Holliday, Cade Povich, and Chase McDermott. Starts at Sam Basayo 1, and we're up to number 10 now. We've got 4 more players to go. Vance Honeycutt, is this a pretty good spot for the #1 pick from this year to be number 10?
Yeah, I do. It was hard for me to place him really anywhere. I haven't seen him practice or move or how he's going to fit as a professional. So I'm kind of going, this is the one time where I'm going on reports from other people. It looks like his defense is already at the mid minors level today. So he won't have to utilize or cost the Orioles valuable developmental resources to get better at defense. All the problems and the criticisms of him come from hit tool type uh,
And some of
details
the same questions that we had with Kyle Stowers,
and
you know,
Bradfield.
and Bradfield, where you brought up tonight, the exit velocity, that's a little bit different than just swing and miss.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. But it's hit tool based things. These are the things that the Orioles believe they
that
can
they can help.
fix
Yeah,
in their system as the years go by. I have no idea. I have yet to see Honeycutt, but the major difference between him and Bradfield is this is an individual that's 6'3" and over 200 pounds.
right.
Bradfield is a smaller framed type of athlete. So I'm there's a league going on right now. I actually think that Honeycutt played in a game either this afternoon or yesterday. So I will do my best to endeavor to find him and film him sometime soon, but it has not happened as of yet.
Fair
He's in
enough.
Sarasota.
All right, let's go over these last three quickly. Number 11 on your list is Luis Almeida, a first baseman from the Florida Complex League. Excuse me, he's 18
Shortstop.
years old, not first baseman. He's
Right.
shortstop.
Yep.
What do you like about him, and where do you think he'll be next year?
Last year is 170. This year he's 208, 208, a little bit over. So he gained the weight, and his contact and his athleticism spiked directly straight up because of that. Long legs, fast transfer, great arm at shortstop. He'll be at Delmarva next year. Nah, he'll start in the FCL and he'll move to Delmarva early next year.
Okay, he's a international signing.
An international signing who grew up in the same hometown as my mother, Passaic, New Jersey.
Okay, okay, interesting. Number 12 is also an infielder, but plays outfield too. 19-year-old Aaron Estrada, also an international prospect.
Oh yeah, this year
And
Delmar
he's at Aberdeen, right?
he just got moved up.
Okay.
I don't. Delmarva's had a very bad season, individually, collectively, developmentally, chemistry, everything has been bad. When he moved up, he batted 310, was on base 400, stole whenever he wanted to, hit home runs, which he didn't do with the FCL. So the Orioles saw his success and immediately bumped him right out of there. So now he's at Aberdeen at 19. But this is a guy who's really well built. His contact is loud, and he's kind of separating himself from his international class from that year. So Aron Estrada. Now he's at high A. He'll start at high A next year and end up at Bowie. I can't wait to see him at camp in February because I want to tell him, man, we thought you were going to have a good season, and it was much better than even expected. He's killing.
Where would you project him as an infielder, or is he good enough to play a solid outfield position?
His best use of his gifts is second base.
Second base. Okay.
A hip turner, a pivot kind of. He's got a good first step and good routes, but he's much more natural with that turn to second and pivoting around the bag. Very, very strong around the bag also.
So like a little like a Jonathan Scope, but maybe a better upside offensively.
Okay, that is a great comparison. That's yes, but I don't think he'll ever have the power upside because he's closer to 5'11", where Scope was closer to like 6'2". But
yeah,
he can contact it better, and he'll have more doubles than Scope even had taters.
and a better on base
and
a better on base percentage.
Yeah, he walks, and
Yeah.
he wants to walk because he steals. So
Okay.
this
A
is
better
by the way,
all-around player.
this is
Almost like
profile.
it sounds like a smaller version of Julio Franco.
Significantly smaller, but this is a profile that the Orioles are having success with. The infielder slash outfielder who's strong enough to hit 9 home runs, but is probably going to steal 35 bases.
Gotcha. Okay.
If we could get Bradfield there, that would be a major, major victory. I don't see it.
Okay. And last but not least, number 13. He's 24 years of age. He's now at Aberdeen. That's him going down, right? He went from Bowie to Aberdeen this year, correct?
Who?
Alex Pham. Alex Pham.
I
You have him
believe
at Aberdeen. At last I looked, he was at Bowie.
that was a typo because I changed someone else out, but
Okay.
Pham is currently at Bowie, and I probably there was the reason I was confused. I probably wouldn't have him here. I would have Brandon Young, the
Okay.
taller, longer-haired starting pitcher. It changes really like every single day. The
I
reason that I'd have
understand.
the
You don't have
reason
to apologize about that at all. Do you
the reason
still
I
like
would
do you still like Pham at all?
yeah, I like both of them actually a great deal more than others. I'm the Orioles biased prospect person, but Pham is short. He has 5 pitches, and he's I guess smart enough to have a different plan for righties and a different plan for lefties. Young doesn't have exhilarating stuff. I guess the best thing about his arsenal is he can throw a fastball with good inverted vertical break that hits about 96. But this is a true gamer. Strong, silent. No matter what the situation is, he's yelling at the manager when it's time to take him out. Kind of like in some ways, some perspectives, he's a minor league lifer. But I don't see him. I don't see him that way. He's got enough stuff to where he can cross the line and be usable in a major league bullpen. I compare him to the guy that we used to have, Asher Wojciechowski. Just not much more than a fastball, but he's
Yeah.
not trying. He's always very obviously trying. So I like Brandon Young for that role. And the reason that I moved him ahead of Pham is because he had a great start today for the Tides where they won.
Okay. Oh, he's already at Norfolk. How old is Brandon Young?
I believe Young turns
4,
26 or
6.
20, 25 or 26 his next birthday. I don't know when it is.
Okay. All right. That's going to do it for today. Great work.
A lot of names.
Eric Garfield again at Eric_Birdland. You can look for video and his posts about the Oriole prospects. Interesting and a great find on Patrick Riley. And I know you were aware of him because he was a Pirate prospect.
Yep.
And you keep a close eye on them because you live in Braden. All right. Thank you very much, Eric Garfield.
Absolutely.
We are have been brought to you by the Costas Inn. Again, 50 plus years at 4100 North Point Boulevard. Great nightly specials, Monday through Friday, highlighting tonight's ad about the Costas Inn. Also brought to you by AJ Michaels Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Home Performance. More at ajmichaels.com. And of course, we're brought to you by Atman's, the new Atman's at Harbor Point, Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. They're now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find them, Harbor Point, or visit atmansdeli.com. For Eric Garfield, I'm Stan the Fan, and I'll see you around on Glenn Clark's show tomorrow and Monday with Luke Jackson and Ross Grimsley. Bye for now.